This week, Music Biz Weekly podcast. We kind of continue on last week's episode about knowing what your vibe is. Blasko sits down and gives us a couple actual real world examples of some new artists that have a very unique vibe and are living that vibe and why that is so important.
Welcome to the Music Biz Weekly podcast, celebrating over 15 years and over 600 weekly episodes, where Michael Brandvold and Blasko, two longtime music industry pros, discuss the very latest trends, tools and tactics that you need to succeed in this new music business.
The Music Biz Weekly podcast has moved to a brand new YouTube channel. Please hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss future episodes. Visit www.musicbizweeklypodcast.com, subscribe on YouTube, follow and rate us on Spotify, subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. We appreciate your support.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Music Biz Weekly podcast. You got Michael and you got Blasko. How you doing today, Blasko?
What is happening? Glad to be here.
It's a Thursday, spring break next week, heading down to San Diego, taking the family down to San Diego. So yeah, it's sort of like, which by the way, everybody, we're taking next week off because it's spring break. Not going to be here. Family always comes first. Family work, we always say, comes first before a podcast. So, we had a cool episode last week where you were talking about, what's your vibe, what's your brand, what's your story, who are you? You've got to answer that question before you can really go anywhere with your career as a musician. Solo artist, band, doesn't matter. You got to understand that. And we kind of wrapped up with like, all right, so go off, think about that. This episode, maybe we'll continue that discussion. So what I'd like to throw out at you, Blasko, is so somebody now has thought about their vibe. And what do they do now that they've got their vibe or think they've got their vibe? And of course, as we mentioned last week, that vibe isn't going to be set in stone, people. Don't worry if it changes 2 days after you've set it up and picked it, or a month down the road or 6 months down the road. Your vibe is going to constantly grow and evolve. But you think you've got an idea. Can you give us an example of somebody, a case study, so to speak, of somebody who identified their vibe and acted on it and then grew a following? And again, the key here is grew a following as organically as possible. And organically, everybody, that means free. You're not buying likes, followers. You're not hiring video promoters. You don't have a record label dumping tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars into this. You're not buying ads across all the platforms. You're growing your following as organically as possible. Do you have an example we can talk about?
Yeah, I actually have two that are very relevant. At least they're relevant in my Instagram feed over the last few weeks. The first one is there's a girl whose name is Maphra, Maphra. That's her stage name. And she is, she's very savvy in the digital marketing space. And I believe that in terms, if she was thinking about what's my vibe, she definitely has an aesthetic. It's kind of like more of like a modern day sort of gothy female sort of presence. But I would estimate that she also was like, what's my biggest strength? And how can I showcase that strength? And so I would estimate that she was like, my vocal ability is really great. And you have to be kind of honest with yourself too, is like, from a technical emotional side of voice, she is like top notch. Now, Michael, you'll know, right? Like the singers that we grew up with, these are people that wouldn't even be able to qualify for a voice or an American Idol or something, right? Like these were vibe frontmen. Like they were frontmen before they were singers, right? And their vibe was, I'm a frontman, and that's unmatchable. But like we were just talking about David Lee Roth, right? Like they were
the ringmaster of the circus. They knew how to manipulate, control, and connect with the audience, which, listen, is incredibly important. But yeah, I think you'll agree. And I have so many friends who will say, listen, at the end of the day, David Lee Roth is not the greatest vocalist in the world, but that wasn't his vibe. That wasn't what was being sold.
No, and his vibe was, I have a vibe, right?
He is a vibe.
Yeah. I am the vibe, right?
I am the vibe.
my vocal ability is irrelevant. It's good enough to be able to front my vibe, right? So I would estimate that guys like that or girls like that, sort of, who maybe aren't the best singers, but realize that they've got some type of personality, right? These are the strengths that they identify with. And maybe it's a little bit about being honest with yourself of, it's not always about the technical ability, I guess is my point. So yeah,
it's not about how good you play guitar, how good you can play the drums, how great what your vocal range is. It's not always what it's about.
No, I mean, so I would estimate that she was like, I have a really great vocal ability. My strength actually is my talent, and I need to find a way to showcase that. And also, I know that my platforms are digital marketing, right? YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. So what her plan is like, I'm going to reimagine some cover songs of bands that I like. And then she filmed video of her in the studio cutting these tracks. And then she put them on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and really built a following that way in a very short amount of time. And she, like, I believe that she's been on YouTube for 2 years or something. And she's uploaded like 5 songs. But what's hot about currently what's happening is her Bring Me the Horizon cover that she did. And she reimagines the song that focuses on her ability as a singer.
So she's not doing just a note for note copy.
No. Like whoever her producer is and has done the songs, obviously this is them sort of crafting what's our differentiator in this space. We're not just going to try and do a heavy song for the sake of doing a heavy song. We're going to take a heavy song and we're going to reimagine it, and we're going to showcase my ability in it. And case in point, though, is that she built a following without having to leave the studio. I'm not saying that there isn't a level of sweat equity that goes into doing everything that she did, but the point of it is that her stats are things that people would kill other people for. So in the scope of a couple of years, right, this Bring Me the Horizon video is, I think that last time I checked, the video itself was beyond 10 million views of a single video, which is staggering.
Yep.
Her Instagram following is upwards of 500,000 followers. Staggering, right? TikTok, I think she's got a couple 100,000 on TikTok. But the real winning point of it here is why there's a lot of attention on this, is that she's #1 iTunes sales charts. So people are buying this song, so much so that Nickelback couldn't even knock her out of #1 on the sales charts, which is kind of, that's crazy. But people are loving the song. So long story short is that this, as an example, here is someone that has a very pinpointed strategy that went in and locked it in. And now because of this, now she is starting to build a team. Now she probably will write original music. She will go out and tour. She will do all of the things, but to build up that base, she focused on what she knew or what she thought would work the best, right? In this case, her vibe and her presence and her talent. She focused on those things very specifically, and she blew up, right? And so I think that's a pretty relevant example of something that someone could also do. And then now she's going to go out there and kind of put in the work and really kind of build this thing up. But she's got a base now built, waiting for her to release original music, to do shows, to go on tour. And I guarantee you, she's going to get tour offers immediately. And I tell you that because we already tried to offer her a tour and to open up our tour in the fall. And the agent said that she wouldn't be ready to tour quite by then or whatever. So you can just imagine, there's people lining up to
everybody's knocking on the door. I mean, that is a great example of, if she didn't have the organic base that she built over the last few years, but just was the great vocalist she is, she probably wouldn't have had the opportunities come knocking on her door, being booking agents, managements, any of this stuff. Because again, at the end of the day, we've got to all remember, it's a business we're working in here. It's a business of music, but the business means these other business entities that you would like to work with have to see the opportunity for them to be able to make money here.
Yeah.
And they saw millions of video plays. They saw hundreds of thousands of followers. They saw an audience there already, and were like, okay, we will take you on and book you some shows now, or move towards that direction, because you're not talking and living in a vacuum. Again, great music that's never heard, is it really great music? I mean, there's a lot of great stuff on YouTube that just never gets played.
Yep. Yeah. And I think it's the differentiator with her is it's not always what you think that you're supposed to do. Partially why what she is doing is connecting is because it's the opposite of what you think that you're supposed to do. I'm supposed to find a group of people. I'm supposed to put a band together. We're supposed to write original songs.
We're
supposed to record them. We're supposed to put them on DSPs. We're supposed to make a video, like all these things that we think that we're supposed to do. And whenever you're doing a bunch of things that everyone is also doing, how are you going to rise above all of that noise whenever you know that there's so many artists doing the exact same thing? Is your music so special that it's going to rise above it? No, generally not, right? So it's the finding your vibe, finding your lane. I think the point that I'm pulling out of her as an example so much is that she really attacked the idea of what the belief is that we're all supposed to be doing, and she reinvented it, and she's reaping the rewards because of it. And I don't know. That's just kind of my takeaway from her specifically.
And I'm sure you've encountered this over the many years you've been in the business. There's a general stigma that so many artists, musicians have about doing cover tunes. I'm just gonna be a cover band. I don't want to be a cover band. How will I ever get my original music out there if all I'm doing is playing covers? And that's such a fear that a lot of musicians have, that, boy, if I do one cover song and that cover song takes off, am I forever going to be a cover artist?
Right.
And so it in her case, it took courage to go against the grain and not release your own original music right away. But
Right.
I'm going to release cover tunes. But what I do like is, as you mentioned, she's doing her own interpretation of it. I just personally, as a fan, I think it's a waste if you're going to do an exact duplicate of a cover. Why would I want to hear you do the exact same version that I could go listen to the original?
Yep.
The original is a great song for a reason. If all you're doing is a pure one-to-one copy, you've done nothing to it. If you take it and reimagine it to your strengths and turn it into something different, I personally feel like you're doing two things. One, you might actually be, not intentionally, but fooling the listeners into thinking this is an original tune, while at the same time there's that little ear candy they're going, oh, there's something I really like about this. But they don't realize what they like about it is they've heard this all sorts of times over the years beforehand, the original version.
Yep.
But because you've completely reimagined it, now you're going to get people who are going to be like, that's a great tune she just wrote. Well, no, she didn't write that tune. She did not write it. It's a cover tune.
Yeah.
You know, and how many times have we had artists we've grown up with where you're like, 10 years later, you're like, wait a second, that hit song of theirs was a cover? Yeah, because they did they made a metal version out of some country song. But you had an inkling of hearing that country song at some point. So yeah, she went against the grain there.
Yeah.
And that takes confidence in yourself and what you want to do.
Yeah. You know, real quick too, just a completely side note has made me think of this, is a thing that used to happen back in the day that I really don't think happens anymore is their cover song, like to do a cover song of a song that people really didn't know because they really didn't have the same kind of access to music that we have now, right? Whereas Bow Wow Wow, I Want Candy, not to sound like the old guy, but is a good example of that is a humongously huge song that put Bow Wow Wow on the map of music, and no one knew, and still the majority of people don't know that is a cover song. And that used to actually happen quite a bit, you know, back in the day. I mean, look, there on the first Black Sabbath record, there was 2 cover songs that people really didn't know that they were cover songs. That was a thing they used to be able to get away with. But, you know, just kind of a side note observation.
It's funny you bring that up, because that is a good point. You've got to look at who your audience is going to be. That's going to come from knowing what your vibe is.
Yeah.
And I'll give a great example. I mean, this was 25 plus years ago. I went on a date, took somebody to go see Paul McCartney.
It's a good date.
And you know, he played back in the USSR. And my date was like, he's covering Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, time out. It's the other way around, but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
You know, and the same thing, I took my daughter pre-COVID 2018 to go see JoJo Siwa. It was her first concert. And JoJo Siwa, I've never seen JoJo Siwa before. I had a blast, but in the middle of it, JoJo Siwa does a medley of cover tunes, including Crocodile Rock.
Yeah.
And my daughter was like, that's such a great song she's doing. And I'm like, it's not her song. You know, she was doing Elton John. She was doing some Queen. And I was just like, I'm sitting back going, I can see JoJo Siwa's influence, what she was listening to. She came out, you know, and I'd never heard her say this, but, you know, I would be dumbfounded if it wasn't true, that she was influenced by heavy 70s glam rock. The Kisses, the David Bowies, the Elton Johns, the Queens. Her her visuals looked that way. I mean, she had the half mic, like Freddie Mercury would have.
Yeah.
She had that, and I'm like, oh, it's Freddie Mercury. I mean, come on, please. So, but her audience was 4 and 5-year-old kids who did not know that.
No.
So a cover song works great when you know your vibe and who your audience is, because your audience is going to think it's your song.
Yep. The last thing I'll mention about this is because it's so funny to me. A good buddy of mine who I will not out so that he retains his level of credibility, but he has a Metallica tattoo, and the song "Am I Evil" came up in discussion, and I was like, "Yeah, that's a Diamond Head song." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And I go, "Am I Evil" is a cover song from a band called Diamond Head. And he's like, "I've never heard of that band." And I go, "Dude, you have a Metallica tattoo." And he's like, "Yeah, but I didn't know that." But it's just the case in point is, people just don't necessarily pay attention to the small details, and a song is a song, and it kind of doesn't matter where it came from if it resonates and it connects on some level, right? And I'm sure he's not the only person on earth with a Metallica tattoo that doesning know that "Am I Evil" is a cover song. And at the end of the day, it fucking don't matter. Anyway,
it don't matter. It's a good song. It's a good song.
Right. It was just interesting thing that I had to kind of bring up here. Anyway, case in point is back to the subject at hand is that another relevant example that is super hot on my feed right now. Even Rick Beato, even he had to chime in on this one. So this is a band, a duo, 2 people, not really sure the gender. They're French Canadian, it's a French name of the band, and I will not be able to pronounce it. It's like Angine de Poitrine, something along those lines. EDP for short, right? But they're a microtonal, I believe is the term, microtonal. So they had the guitar player, bass player guy is the same person. He has a custom-made double neck guitar bass that has extra frets between the frets. So he actually has notes that are between notes. So instead of the 12 frets, he has 24 frets. So out of the gate, their music sounds weird. But then they have no time signatures. It's like you can't really see where the measures start and end. It's very complex music. And then they speak their own language. So all of the lyrics and anything vocally that is happening is not in any language that you could even understand. When they do interviews, there's actually subtitles of what they're saying because they're the only ones that speak their alien language or whatever, right?
Interesting.
And they're in elaborate costumes. They're one of these masked, mysterious bands that seems to work, right? That if we can talk about this on another podcast, but the sort of the rise of the anonymous masked bands, the Sleep Tokens, the Presidents, the Ghosts, right? And now add this band into it. There's something about anonymity that audiences kind of are drawn to because they can sort of project themselves into the moment, right? Into the equation. And there, I think there's something to be said about that, like on another episode, like I said. But anyway, this band is sonically like nothing you've ever heard, right? Like you've never heard anything like this ever. And they're not jamming. Like initially I thought that they were just kind of free forming the whole thing, but they have like records and they play songs and they do the same thing repeatedly, right? They play the same song every night or whatever. But case in point is that they've built this very unique thing. They're building this audience, right? And now they're starting to tour, and they're touring in the US for the first time. They're playing like Los Angeles for the first time. And like these shows are all sold out, right? And like it's massively blowing up into this thing that everyone is talking about. But their vibe is such a unique vibe. It's so creatively thought out from every aspect that it's like, once again, what is your lane? What are you doing different? What are you bringing to the table that is so unique that it's undeniable, right? And like, look, this could be a flash in the pan. It could just be a trendy thing because it's nothing that you ever heard of. But bottom line is, there's a lot of bands that are doing predictably the same stuff that are maybe incrementally better or worse than the thing that they're trying to be. But here's two examples of things that are coming at it from a completely different perspective and getting all the attention that any band would kill to have.
Yeah, it's interesting as you were describing that. I'm actually, both of these examples, I'm thinking back, and it's like you just look over the last 4+ decades, 5 decades of music, and the groundbreaking artists, the artists that shot to the top, stayed at the top, and have influenced generations after them, usually were doing something so different than mainstream at their time. They went completely in a different direction. And it could be performance-wise, meaning it could be their sound, their vocals, how they write and sing their songs. It could be as simple as their visuals were so different than what was happening that it just caused audience members to just look at it and go, What? I've never experienced that before. Now, as decades move on, what was shocking 40 years ago is now considered as safe as Disney. So you've got to keep looking at what you're doing and go, how do I take it to another level? How do I go further out of my comfort zone? And to your idea about these bands of anonymity and wearing masks, and that's just a projection of all of what's come before it, just taken to the next level. They're not doing it exactly. They've got to take it to a different level and a different direction. We go all the way back to, David Bowie and what Bowie was doing and all of his experimental music and image and everything else. Alice Cooper, I mean, there's so many artists that you look back, and some of them you could sit here and go, well, they didn't achieve financial success, but they all probably achieved some influential success.
Yep.
And it is about who you are and believing in your heart. We talked about it last week. You've got to believe in who you are. You can't just go, well, I see this as the trend, so I'm just going to follow that trend a little bit crazier maybe. No, people see through that. This has got to be who you are. You've got to live this.
And let's not overlook who you have such history with, KISS. Like,
yeah, these guys.
And so as you were talking, I was thinking about, like, whenever I was a kid, KISS was like the most important thing in my entire world. But my friends that were also, huge KISS fans, it was like we had favorite members, right? Like you identified with one of their personalities, so to speak, or one of their characters, right? Of like, which one do you identify with the most? It's not even which instrument do they play. It was very specific. It was
the person you connected to, a personality, a character. Correct. And they're a perfect example. That's a band that will literally in interviews say, no, we're not great musicians. We're not the best musicians in the world.
No.
It's not that's not what it was about. It was about creating something that nobody else was doing. Were there people that did something similar? Sure, the New York Dolls were there, Alice Cooper was there. But, as they described themselves, we wanted to be like the Beatles, 4 unique individuals on stage, but taking Alice Cooper and what came before to the absolute next level.
Mm-hmm.
These guys live their characters. I mean, it's hard to believe nowadays in 2026, but in the 70s, you couldn't get a photo of these guys out of their makeup.
Yeah, no, they were committed to the project.
They committed. That was committed to
yes,
to the bit, to the marketing, to the promotion. They believed in it.
Yeah.
And you can see all these bands that have come after. I mean, they've all got something unique. Band that you're well familiar with, Motley Crüe. I mean, there's a band who their vibe, the bad boy image.
Yeah.
That was it. What does that mean? Well, it's whatever bad boy means to you, but they didn't just live it on stage. They lived it 24/7.
And that's what made it authentic, because it wasn't bullshit.
That made it real. That's what you gravitated to. That's what hooked you. And again, people might easily sit here and go, well, their music isn't the greatest in the world. No, I don't think anybody's ever claimed it's the greatest music in the world.
Mm-mm.
So,
not at all.
And I think part of what that means is don't get so wrapped up thinking, again, it's all about the music. You got to have, something's got to be great about your music. Something in your music's got to cause goosebumps on somebody. But I think there's too many musicians who just think, my vibe is my music. Well, as we just discussed, not really. That music could be a cover tune.
It's a part of it. It's got to be a part of the bigger equation. Look, I mean, it's a big concept, but if you want to kind of dumb it down, you're like, man, I don't even know where to think about like what you guys are talking about. It's so cerebral. Like, I go, think of it in this way. Look at what you do and then think of the opposite. Think if I did what I did, but I did the opposite of what I'm currently doing. Right. Because it's like KISS, the guts that it took for them to wear full kabuki makeup and get in all that get up. And at some point they got on stage in front of 20 people, right? Like in the early days, they were not headlining Madison Square Garden, right? In the early days, they had to get up there and get up in a room of people that were maybe sitting in chairs or something, right?
Going, what the hell is this?
Right. What are these clowns doing? I bet it was so easy to dismiss. I bet it was so easy to be like, this is going to be nothing. This is trash, right? And so, but they looked at the world around them and said, what if we do the opposite? And so I think the easy frame of mind for any independent artist watching this right now is ask yourself, what can I do that is the opposite of what I'm currently doing? And what would that look like? What would that sound like? How would I present that? And would that make a difference, right? Is there something that you can authentically sell that would be the opposite, of that? Like, I think when I think of it in the terms of, say, Liquid Death or like in the beverage space, if you think of like energy drinks, up until that point, we had like Coke or Jolt Cola or like a highly caffeinated, soda. And then here comes Red Bull in a different size can. And they're an energy drink specifically focused on energy, right? High caffeine, high sugar, like all these things that are going to boost you, right? But it was a different size can. They did the opposite, right? And then here comes Monster. Oh, well, let's do the opposite of them. Let's have a fucking 16-ounce can, a giant can, And so it's like you constantly kind of see that. If you take a look around, the brands and the things that differentiate and elevate they're sometimes, or a lot of the times, are doing the opposite of what is currently happening and what is just accepted as this is just what this thing is, right? Whereas like liquid death, well, every water's in a plastic bottle. We're going to put ours in an aluminum can. And that was the opposite of what a water beverage company did at the time.
And just the name, I mean, the concept, water represents for everybody basically life.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do? We're going to call it death.
Right. And our marketing is going to be based around how dangerous water is. And therefore you're taking a risk with your life for drinking our beverage, which who doesn't like a challenge?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me wrap this all up. What I always tell, especially artists that I'm working with, especially when I'm like, well, this is what we've got to do from content wise, or this is what, if we're putting together a VIP program, I'm like, you as the artist in the band, you're too close to what you're doing. It is you've seen it, you live it, you experience it, but you're a fan of somebody, right? Hey, Gene Simmons, you're a fan of Paul McCartney. What does Paul McCartney do that gives you goosebumps? Think about that and remember that. Now, you've got to do the same thing for your fans. What, as an artist, can you do for your fans that gives them goosebumps? Never forget what it's like to be a fan. And that can be very hard for a lot of artists as you get more and more and more successful and bigger and more internationally known. It becomes easier to forget what it's like to be a fan because you're so deep into your own world and your own business. But this is all about building a fan base. That's what this whole concept started on. And if you're going to build a fan base, you got to remember what it's like to be a fan. What makes the fan excited? What makes them play that song again and again and again? There's no magic formula other than something did that for you. Did the Beatles do that for you? Did the Rolling Stones do that for you? Did David Bowie? We can go through generations. Did Madonna do it for somebody? Stop. Think for a second. Man, the first time I heard or most likely saw Madonna on MTV, what was going through your mind when you saw that? Oh my God, I've never seen anybody dress and act like that on stage, sing like that. Remember the MTV Video Music Awards where she was in the wedding dress? Whoa. I mean, Kihn by today's standards. Back then, you would have swore she just destroyed the world. Mm-hmm. Think about those moments that you have had as a fan of somebody else. And that artist you were a fan of did something outside of the norm, took the risk, lived what they were all about. That's what you've got to do for yourself now.
Yeah. Awesome, man. So,
yeah, this is fun. So again, homework wise, just hit us up with questions because as you alluded to, Blasko, this can be a kind of a deep topic. It's not an easy sit down and I'll figure out an answer in 2 minutes here. But you got to really start thinking about this. And you got to really start trying to wrap your head around it because you're going to have to do this the rest of your career. If you get a professional career that clicks, you're going to constantly be looking at stuff like this going, all right, what do we got to do for the next 12 months to ride out this new trend that we're not part of? And how do we stay relevant for another year, another 6 months? You're constantly looking at stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, leave a comment anywhere, LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify. You can leave comments on Spotify. We love reading them. And of course, big shout out to Bruce, Jeremy, and everybody at HypePod and Bands in Town for all your support. And that's it. We're off next week, but we'll be back the week after that. Blasko, awesome. Thank you so much.
Good seeing you.
Every month, thousands of musicians and industry professionals listen to the Music Biz Weekly podcast. If you have a product or service and would like to reach this audience, get in touch with Michael to discuss sponsorship opportunities.
Voices for the Music Biz Weekly podcast provided by LarryDavisVoice.com.